Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa's stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. We are living in a broken world. Our connections to people and places have been radically changed. We may be isolated and sometimes overwhelmed by uncertainty. It's putting pressure on all of us to remain hopeful. Can we find a way out of this darkness? Well, we've asked Pastor Steve Brackett to join us as we talk about faith, family, and community. Steve, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be with you. As you said, I'm a pastor. I'm an assistant to the bishop in the Northeastern Iowa Synod. And we just had a transition with our previous bishop, Olested, retiring. And so we have a new bishop I'm the assistant to. She is Bishop Andrea DeGroot-Nesdal. And I work for our Synod office, which means that we help support the ministries of 145 congregations in Northeastern Iowa through various things that we do. As you can imagine, during the pandemic here, our focus has really shifted to supporting congregations in moving to live streaming worship services and taped worship services and how to return to in-person worship when it's safe to do that. So really a lot of changes in our Synod office over the last few months as we've seen some pretty major transitions happen.
You know, we've seen the faith community, quite frankly, struggle because of the loss of direct connections to people and have to sort of amp up technological advances, online services, things of that nature. But there's a deeper undercurrent of issues here where people are living in almost a constant state of anxiety. At the same time, all these connections have been severed, of which faith is one, in many cases even families when they're too far apart to visit. You know, how has this affected what the church is doing? In a general way, has it been sort of a, we need to take a different look at how we approach this?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, as I'm sure you know, being in ministry means really working with and connecting with people. And we've seen the most difficulty in congregations where their pastor was very new or maybe came during the pandemic. Normally that first year would be building relationships and establishing trust with one another and really trying to figure out what the ministry needs are. And as you can imagine, visiting people in their homes who are homebound or in nursing homes or in the hospital. And suddenly that just all ended. So the normal connections that happen in ministry were terribly disrupted. And so we have these people in need who aren't able to get the help that they need at the time. So there has been a shift in terms of how worship services are provided for people, but also all of the ministry that goes on outside of the worship services has been affected.
Well, we find people, I've talked to people about this. One of the reasons we invited you to the show is the fact that people that were used to the very, let's call it ritualized experience of faith, going to church on Sunday or service on Sunday, having regular social outings with that group of people, that, you know, they feel a sense of emptiness. The children are left alone. And there are other people that maybe haven't had that many faith connections that are thinking maybe faith would be a good thing for me to look at. That maybe the idea of hope in a situation like this is different than business as usual in a family or in a church. How are you facing those challenges?
Those are all very good points. And in fact, there was this fear that this was going to be what would push many congregations over the edge in terms of surviving. It's been just the opposite. People need that sense of there's something bigger than just us. There's something bigger than this pandemic. And there is someone who can be there with us through this. So people have an opportunity, if they can gin down the anxiety a bit and really take a look at their life and things beyond their life, to say, hey, what is my faith life like? We talk about needing to take care of all the different areas of our life, our physical well-being, all of those things. Spiritual well-being needs to be looked at as well.
That's a great point, and I'd like to continue that after the break. When we come back, we'll talk about finding your path and a hopeful outlook in these challenging times. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about these challenging times where, there's a lot more to just waiting for the pandemic to end. There are many things we have taken for granted that now require some special attention, and we may need help from sources we've never considered before. Steve, you have some ideas on how to deal with this almost challenging, stressful situation for people in their lives.
Certainly. I really haven't been referring to all of this as social distancing. That sounds kind of benign. What's really happened is social isolation. And many of us don't deal well with isolation. And so as everyone refrains from gathering into groups and interacting in close proximity, it's easy to really foster and continue that isolation. So really, this is a time to intentionally get engaged, and maybe not just re-engaged, but engaged in things you haven't done before. My advice certainly to people is use this as a time to get closer to God, to work on your faith life. Whatever your faith might be, or if you really are unchurched or have never really had a faith life, it's something to explore. And there are many options out there for you to look at in order to look at your relationship with God. Really, almost every congregation in our synod that's providing online worship that is being viewed, say over Facebook Live or some other platform, they're seeing more people viewing their worship service than they normally have attending the service in person. That tells me there are people out there seeking, looking, and it's a wonderful thing, so much so that when we're done with this pandemic, and it will happen someday, congregations will continue to offer online versions of their worship to keep those folks engaged and to invite them to come to be there in person. So new people are being reached, and it also means, honestly, several people are viewing more than one service, which I think is wonderful. This can also be a time to explore other denominations, other faith traditions. So if you're Lutheran, look at a Roman Catholic service that's being broadcast, or look at a Jewish synagogue, or a Baha'i religion, or anything at all that you can think of that you're curious about. I'm sure that there are mosques that are having their services presented. So look for those opportunities to really grow your own faith, but also look at other faith traditions and learn more about your neighbors.
That's an interesting point about looking at other things in a culture now where we're really trying to talk about really all lives mattering and people caring for people. I wonder if we have this huge trend amongst millennials that are not involved with organized religion. And it sort of sounds fascinating to think, hey, check out any religion. But then is it sort of like shopping on Amazon? I mean, are there some secrets for an individual that maybe hasn't led a faith-based life? When they're watching this, things that they should think about, because it's not an easy journey. The step from not believing to believing so often is a precipitate of an event or something happening. And often it's a traumatic event or a challenging event. But this is sort of a long, drawn out, like taffy event that's pushing people to different corners. What would you tell a millennial that has not ever practiced faith for any reason, just the fact that they might be listening?
Well, what hooks us first? Typically, it's an emotional response. So I think for most people, if say they're watching an online service and there's something that reaches them emotionally and deeply, they're going to be drawn to that and likely to come back. I would just caution that, like with most everything, it's great if you have that kind of an emotional response. We would say it's the working of the Holy Spirit, that you then find out a little bit more about that faith group. If it's a congregation, if it's a mosque, if it's a temple, whatever it is, do a little background, check out their webpage, and then find out if they're part of a larger organization. We're part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. They have a presence online. And certainly you can find out all you need to through Google with the ELCA and with their website. So do a little more digging just to make sure that what those folks purport to believe you agree with, and you would be comfortable there. But don't be afraid to be persuaded by that emotional response and an emotional feeling. That's a good thing. It's something you want. And I'm glad you bring up millennials too, because we have this sense that, oh, they're doing fine because they already have all the electronics. They've grown up with that. No, like everyone, young people need to have those close personal interactions. And so they're hurting as much as anyone else, certainly school children too. So they need all of their normal interactions to continue in a different way. And then this is also a good time for them to look at their spiritual health while they're managing the other aspects of their life.
Maybe we'll take a short break and maybe I'll ask you for a few sort of measurements of spiritual health. Maybe when somebody looks in the mirror, the questions they need to ask themselves. We'll see all at the break. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at how the faith community is rallying together to help people feel better. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
While a lot is changing in our world, at Mediacom, our focus remains the same, making sure you have the fastest, most reliable connection possible. During this critical time, we know your needs are changing. You may be working or learning from home, relying on telemedicine, or finding new ways to keep everyone entertained. If you need more speed, call or go online, and Mediacom will double your speed immediately for as low as $10 more a month for 1 year. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Pastor Steve Brackett about the challenges people are facing and how the faith community is working to help. Steve, a quick question for you. We're seeing a whole lot of kids that play video games, and they're getting burned out on it. We're hearing that it's like having too much of a good thing. If we fill your bowl with candy all day long, you'll get sick of eating candy. And they're sort of looking for places to go. And there's an interesting paradox here. Mm-hmm. They play these games where they often are responsible to deities within the context of the game. And I don't know if that's a healthy thing, but we also know that thou shalt not kill is a really good thing for humans to nurture, but yet in games there is an exceptional amount of destruction and killing going on. Well, in that climate where we have all these kids, does the faith-based community really have a way to connect with them? Or what are the best ways for them to say, hey, I'm taking a break. I'm looking in a mirror. What do I need from this experience in life? What do I need from my internet? Or what do I need as a person? How do those correlate?
I think kids have a good capacity to realize what's real and what's not real. But there are times when the video games will imitate life. We have violence happening in our communities now. We have murder and very, very difficult behavior to observe. And that has to have an impact upon kids as well. It certainly does on adults. So there might be times, especially when they've had enough of the video games, or maybe they've binge watched enough on Netflix to say, I'm done with that too, to do a little bit more exploration. And I think kids like adults will ask at times, is this all there is? And they might ask as they're watching the news, well, why? Why is this happening? Why is there evil in the world? Why is there suffering in the world? And how do I feel about my life right now? So at those times when people have those watershed moments in life where they think, I want more, there needs to be more to this. Will my life ultimately matter? And certainly young people will ask that as much as we might. Then that's a time when they'll be out searching. So how do most young people find a religious institution of some sort? Through the internet. So certainly the way that congregations can reach out is to have an internet presence, have a Facebook presence, have a Twitter presence, all of the social media platforms, because that's the most likely place where young people will tap into it. And you really want to have material that is non-judgmental, that really is reaching out and offering folks to come in and just check it out. So there needs to be a welcoming sense that anybody can come, anybody can explore. And so I think when those kind of interactions can happen, there's a great likelihood that young people will say, wow, this is different than what I thought it would be. Maybe they've heard some bad things about organized religion, or really shy away from any kind of organized activity, but they might find that this is a place where they can have some of their questions answered and have people actually say, well, we don't know either. Come,
I have a
and
question.
let's explore that together.
I have a question, because we've looked at some of the research on people that play video games or watch TV and Netflix, which I'm not, within certain reason, they're not terrible things to do, just excessive. And they figured out that in many instances, they don't calm or relax people, that their stress level is still pretty high.
Sure.
So you think it's to escape and be relaxed, but your brain waves are really locked into some patterns. Yet they've also studied people saying prayers, or even having conversations. Like, I could ask you, well, what is God? I mean, how do you define a God? Is God real? That kind of thing. And they see the brain sort of perks up. In other words, there's a great feeling with it, yet there's this element of faith. Is God real? I mean, what is God? How do you tell somebody that's never been a faith person that there is a loving and benevolent God?
Yeah, and I think really that kind of research is extremely helpful when you're looking at brainwave patterns and level of alertness and where things are firing in the brain during different activities. My first career was in mental health, so I still pay a load of attention to those kinds of things. And for me, it was an easy move into ministry because I never lost what I had used before in mental health working in ministry, because people still have suffering, they still have problems and issues to deal with, and they need to be accepted for who they are, and along with whatever issues or problems they have. So usually in helping people change behavior, you really, one, have to realize something's going on, something's wrong. So for those who are saying, this is not doing it for me anymore, or if they're up on the computer or on video games, they're probably not getting good sleep, because all of that lovely, is it the blue light that bothers you? All of that constant activity, and you're really not firing off the parts of the brain that are most helpful for you in feeling like your anxiety level's going down, you're getting calm, and it's just not that helpful. So really, these big questions, this is a wonderful time to be able to start exploring some of those things, as long as people can do it in a non-judgmental way and in a way where people aren't trying to hook them in. There's always this desire amongst members of a lot of religious organizations that, we need more people. We need more people to pay the bills. No, that's not what ministry is about at all. You need to reach people, meet their needs, invite them to be a part of the conversation of these difficult questions.
Well, that's a great point. We're going to take a short break. And Steve, I'd like to ask you to come back and share some final comments and advice for our viewers. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
I don't know how we would have survived without Mediacom. We have 5 kids, my wife and I, and we have Mediacom for all of our internet and all of our cable services. So I'm stuck in my house, but at the same time, I'm connected to people all over the world, and it's been fantastic.
Thanks to Mediacom, I've had reliable internet to continue to work business as usual, that I can continue to provide for myself and my family.
Right now, we all feel like the world is in a standstill. The internet has played a huge role in allowing us to stay connected to our jobs and the kids' schooling online and finding fun and creative ways to stay connected with the ones that we love. We couldn't do it without Mediacom.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today on Surviving Bad, we're taking a moment to talk about finding hope in a broken world. Our guest Steve has some words of wisdom and advice that may be able to help, or at least get you to think about some things differently. Steve, welcome. You have the stage.
Well, I really want people to think about this, that as you look ahead, really try to prepare for what's coming. We may be in this pandemic, we may have a spike, there might be more social distancing and isolation happening. So be prepared for that and turn off the TV, find a new hobby, read a book, do something different, do something that you've been putting off for a long time. Mostly though, spend time with family. If you can't be with them in person, get on Zoom. My family and I have a game night every Saturday night. You can still play games over Zoom. You'll figure it out, but we have good conversation too. But I really want to talk about making sure that you're thinking now about the holidays that are coming up. Thanksgiving is not that far away, Christmas soon after. Holidays probably are going to be very different for every family. So think about the ways that you can get excited about those holidays coming like you normally would be, and what you're going to do to stay connected to family. Yes, you can still probably do some of the usual traditions, although you might do it separately. You can add new traditions too, though. Maybe an extended prayer over Zoom as you're together before you eat your meals separately. Maybe lighting a candle for those who have died over the past year or two, or people that you want to remember, and have everybody in the family light a candle in their own home. There are lots of different things you can do to really try to cope with what's here and what may be coming in the future.
And faith, as I see it, has really been sort of that candle lighting the room for people. Even if the conventions change, they can't get out in person as much. A person's connection to faith sort of transcends all this technology, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We always talk about the fact that no matter what is going on in your life, God is there with you. And what's hard to do is, if you've never really had that relationship with God, or that relationship hasn't been strong, it's very hard to rely on that in times of trouble. So there can be a positive, a silver lining that comes out of this time of social distancing and social isolation. Really improve your relationship with God if you have one. If you don't, establish one, because you'll find that God will be there in the best of times, and in the worst of times, you'll probably need to hold on to God most closely in the worst of times.
You know, when we talk to children, teens, young adults, a lot of teens that are now home more, even if they're out in school, it's more stressful. They're very confused, and they feel these times are really dark. And I think that sometimes they've grown up in a world where we give them more stuff to do. Let's go out and do a pizza. Let's go play a video game. Let's go watch a movie. But those things, the value of these things have been stripped away to some extent. A lot more people appreciate going to school now. Probably more people appreciate going to church now. But there are going to be people that have no connection to God or faith where these lights start to go out. The computer's either not there or not going to work. Bills are going to get too tough. You know, life is just going to be hard, and they're going to be in a dark, empty room. What thought could we give them to have where God might make a connection to help them?
I think a lot depends on what you do now to deal with these difficult times. There are so many positive things that we can do that we don't have the opportunity to do, to have meals with families, to actually sit down at the table at a home-cooked meal and have that meal and pray as a part of that, not just for the food that you have, but for the people around you, for people in trouble. So if you add devotions as a family, if you add prayer, if you have a rich prayer life, if you are attending worship services, even if they're virtually, and you have that foundation of faith, then in those darkest times, you still have someone to lean on. You can lean on God and find that comfort that you need at that time. But I think what's also important, what ties it, is the memories we have of how we've celebrated our faith with others, especially family. So build those memories now while you can.
Okay, one quick question to end it, a yes or no question. Somebody has no faith connection, no church, but they want to explore, but maybe they're in need of food or help or anything else. Should they go to the local church, go reach out to somebody and ask for help?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Well, we hope that message gets across too, and I thank you for all the other messages you've shared, and I thank you all for joining us today. You can go to our website at ahealthyiowa.org for more information. Keep your eye on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa's stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.